First of all, Mike, thank you for
Mark, thank
taking
you.
some time for some pizza and politics
All
today.
right.
So what do you like on your pizza?
I like, and you and I've probably talked about this, but I like anything my grandkids tell me I'm going to have. Used to be, all meat lovers and everything like that, but for some reason the grandkids, it's cheese. So yeah. So it's pretty simple, but
So are there any topics you would filibuster against?
no, I guarantee they would filibuster against anchovies, but other than that, so
You even like those little fish.
I can like those little salty fish. That's right.
You're a Marine. You have, in fact, on your arm,
Yeah.
I have one of those too that a Marine gave me when my dad passed away in honor of my dad. Who are you wearing that for?
Exactly the same. Whenever I took over as a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee and the Disability and Memorial Affairs Committee subcommittee, a very good person that's involved with the veterans stuff around here knew that I was a Marine, and they'd make these, and if you've got yours, they make them with the color of the service branch in which you were in.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea and intent is I'm going to give you this, is what he said, and I don't want you to take it off, because when you're in committee, I want you to look down and remember who you're working for. And so that's why I wear it.
That's great. What's the best lesson you learned from serving in the military?
That you can achieve whatever you put your mind to, and that camaraderie and friendship, and also, when working in the Marine Corps especially, nobody cares what your race is, nobody cares what your gender is, nobody cares where you came from, nobody cares what your religion is. It's a support of each other and a strong belief in this nation and why it is that it's worth fighting for.
Now, my dad, you know my dad, you knew
Very
my
well.
dad. He was a Marine. He got services from the Marion VA.
Yep.
He had excellent care from the Marion VA. I've talked to other veterans who have said the same thing, that they love it there.
Right.
They've received great care. But yet we still hear complaints about the VA system as a whole.
Correct.
You just recently toured the Marion VA Medical Center. First of all, your thoughts on that center in particular and the job they're doing.
First off, there's a saying in Congress on the VA committee. If you've seen one VA, you've seen one VA. Because everyone is different and everyone has a unique personality, and everyone we have to be able to, in the VA committee, identify what problems they might have to make them better. Because remember, that's what the goal is to provide the best possible service to our veterans, the best health care they can receive in the fastest manner that they can receive it. That was a promise to them. What happens is sometimes you may have management problems. Sometimes you might have personnel problems. But always you're making the monitoring and doing, there's a check system that's in place. I have one VA in my district, and that's Marion. I have two other VA facilities that are located just across the river in St. Louis. I've got Jefferson Barracks, and I've got the one downtown. And both of those are improving tremendously. Marion has improved, but yet there's still oversight that needs to be done. That doesn't mean there's not quality people there, and let's be very, very clear on that. Because you can have 80, 90% of the people wanting to do a good job and serve the veterans who come in there. Let me tell you that I know for a fact that their hospice is just amazing. I want to say how great they are. But it also is the rest of the services. But unfortunately, one or two things can all of a sudden show up like a real problem. Mm-hmm. Right now, what we're dealing with in Marion is making sure that the relationship between management and the frontline worker is good. Making sure that we're getting the quality frontline worker. The other problems we have is quite often when you're competing with the private sector to get the best possible doctors. Not that means the doctors that are there are not good. I'm just saying that when competing to try to fill those spots, the empty spots that we might have, it's very difficult with what is offered as far as pay. Now, this job security is there, but meeting when you're competing against the private sector as far as providing the best docs is a little tough, especially the specialist. Of course, that's why we also have the choice program. The choice program is vitally important for our area, but it's really, really important when you start looking at big sky country where it is so far between one VA and another. And the people that are out there, that live out there, are veterans that need those services. So Marion is a great facility. It's been around a long time. Now, we also have to make sure that we're working with them to provide what we need as far as infrastructure needs. Whether that's the sewer, and I know you know about the problems that we've heard about. We heard about them when we were there. We didn't hear about them as quick as we would have liked to, but
You're talking about how they were finding the Legionella in some of the water supplies. Do you feel like they attacked that problem quickly and efficiently? And
fast as I found out about it, I actually found out about it through staff, okay? And I know the VA of which way, how they handle things. If it's reported up through the lines quickly, they will definitely come in here. You won't have the problem you have with the state VA at Quincy. Quickly they'll come in and they'll make sure that it is cleared up for the safety of the veterans, and I trust them to do that. Now, it will be monitored, and that's why we have oversight from our committee through the VA.
Now, you also introduced the VA Health Center Management Stability and Improvement Act. How does that bill help veteran services?
Yeah, let me explain that. When dealing, what we discovered was, we first heard about it from a report out of St. Louis, and that was the fact that over a 3-year period, there had been as many as 6 to 7 administrative changes of the chief administrator. Well, that was because there's a rule that if you take an administrative position and you're not taking it for a full-time position, you can have it no more than 240 days, I think is what it was. No, 140 days. In that length of time, you can't even know the names of the people you're working with. So we saw this problem and we thought that, oh, well, it's just in our district. And come to find out, there were 30 to 40 VAs around this nation that they were just rotating doors for management. And because of that, they couldn't keep up with the existing problems because you need a permanent manager. So working with the VA, we put the language together that basically says that we're going to try to stop the revolving door. We're going to put management people in places where they can stay, where they can focus on the issues and improve it. Let me tell you that in St. Louis, at Johns Hopkins, they have improved and moved their standard from mid-range of all the VAs to 28th in just a few short years because they've got a permanent management system in place. He could focus, along with his staff, on coming up with some wonderful and unbelievable things that they're doing. And my hope is that what they're doing then can spread to these other VAs to make sure that we have full-time and permanent staff. What
else are you working on right now to help veterans in our country?
Well, we have one thing, because not only do I work on the Veterans Affairs Committee, I'm on the Ag Committee. One of the bills we have out there now that we're trying to work with, there are 66% of the farmers in this nation, professional farmers that are actually still on the farm, are over 65 years of age. Less than 10% are under 30. So that was a problem we noticed. Another problem we noticed is that we're trying to find out things that our veterans who are looking for work, but also are dealing with post-traumatic stress syndrome. What we discovered is working in agriculture actually helps them deal with post-traumatic stress syndrome. So we have actually developed a program that is more like a mentorship or an internship for families where the person who's running that family farm, that's been in the family for a long time, has no family member to take it over. They can then work to get a veteran that would be interested into being trained into that type of work.
So it's an apprenticeship for the veteran to take over the farm.
That's correct. That's correct. Because we are looking for those unique situations for our veterans that actually help them in dealing with not only your post-traumatic stress syndrome, but moving from the battlefield, in this case, to the cornfield. And so, what a great thing, because, and you know, we work with all kinds of groups and organizations, as well we should. Let me tell you some really wonderful things. So the subcommittee that I was chairman of, but now ranking member because we're no longer in the majority, that's the only reason that switch occurs. But still working with the now chairperson, she's a wonderful gal, but disability and memorial affairs. The disability side is if you're a veteran and you are trying to get an extension of if you're 66% or 70% disabled, but there's other things that come up that show that you might be able to be 90% disabled or whatever, and you go through the process and you're denied, then we handle the appeals process. We've shortened that.
Right.
That was just signed into law a couple years ago by the president, and we've sped that process up, which is vitally important to do as long as we can make sure we're speeding it up, but we're also making sure we're taking care of those who are already in the line to deal with those issues. Right. But we also deal with, and this is such an amazing thing that's going on right now, under that committee is all memorials and cemeteries that are under the federal control for the VA. That includes Arlington, that includes Normandy, that includes Belleau Wood, all of them, okay? It includes mountains. But from First World War on, because of today's science, now understand that when we have those cemeteries, we keep them up very, very, very well, whether they're here in this nation or whether they're overseas. We have do a great job and of holding on to the history of why we're taking care of our war dead there. However, if you go to any of these cemeteries, you see many marked graves that say unknown. However, any of those cemeteries then have usually a monument, usually an inside monument that has a granite wall, and in that wall is the names of everybody that was MIA. Well, what we are able to do now is, by finding the name of the MIA, we can reach out to the closest relative of that MIA and request their DNA. We can probe into the graves of the unknown. We can use that DNA and we can match. And when we match, what the federal government does is the VA contacts the family member, the closest relative, and said, we have found your family member. Here's what we would like to do. We would like to bring you over to the grave in which your family member is at. We want you to see the resting place that they're at. They bring them over, they look it over, they say, we will take and make this monument, put their name, their date of birth, day of death, to the best of our ability, and we can either leave them here, this is up to you as a family member, or we can exhume them and take them back to the States and put them in a place of rest with a full military honors. That's your choice. Wow. And that is amazing in itself. Wow. So there's a lot of rewards with this job. You know, this is one of those things that when you're working on VA issues that, you know, these people that have served us so well, men and women who have gave up time away from their home, gave up health, gave up property, have sacrificed so much, have gave up quite often mental stability, seen some of the worst things. The fact that we can provide for them to the level that we were supposed to in the agreement when they took that oath of office, that's why I try every way in the world to stay on that committee.
Speaking of our military men and women, should President Trump have pulled our troops from Syria?
I don't think so. You know, I get criticized that, oh, you never disagree with the president. Well, actually, I disagreed with him on at least two things. One was the freeing of Rod Blagojevich, which was a different subject, and we had a long talk, believe me. But then, this is an issue with me. I didn't like it when President Obama pulled troops because I know the vacuum that it creates. Now understand, remember, I was just an E4. I did my time, I served, but the best of the military strategy people have said we shouldn't do this. That doesn't mean it's an impeachable offense to do it. It is well within his power as the president to make that call. We've been there a long time. I don't have to sign those letters or make that contact with those parents or that spouse that have lost their loved one. But I also want to make sure that the people who have shed their blood, life, limb, in dealing with those issues in those countries where we are, that we didn't do that in vain. Mm-hmm. The Turks and the Kurds, this is a very, very long fight, 2 centuries with them. However, the Kurds have been one of our closest allies. And the frustration that the men and women feel that were over there that worked with them. Now understand there were some bad people among them. There's some bad people that have actually served in our military. And whenever we have that time that we're training them, and some of them may turn on us while we're training them, is a real problem the president expressed too. Mm-hmm. But no, in just flat out answer to your question, I do not believe it was a good idea to pull out.
What do you think is going to happen there now that we have pulled out and Turkey has invaded?
I think we're seeing it already. I think the president feels that we should let it play out. My fear, okay? One is we've sent a message to allies that maybe we won't always be there for you. 2, let's look at the region. Do we want Assad? How do we want this to play out in the long run? And does that all of a sudden get filled with someone who starts planning the next 9/11 attack? Mm-hmm. I'd rather fight them in the sands over there than fight them in the streets of Southern Illinois or any place else in this nation. So that's my military side telling you.
That was going to be my other question could we see a resurgence of ISIS and terror activity because of this action?
That's possible. That's possible. Let me tell you this. I know for a fact that, and we aren't pulling them out, we have some of the best security and monitoring worldwide of any place in the world. In places where we don't know where they're at. Mm-hmm. And any increase in possible terrorist activity will be and is detected. I believe that if probably American people knew how many things have already been stopped with the people that are, these are whiz kids that we put in there.
And I'm sure there's so much that we catch that the average person has no clue of what we've stopped. Now, Congressman Shimkus asked that his name be removed from the I Support Donald Trump list.
Yeah. I think,
and I know
think that was a knee-jerk reaction.
He says, I'm still supporting him on domestic issues.
Right.
But because of this, I cannot support him in other ways. And
right. And
what about your support for President
My support
Trump?
is still for the president. I don't have to agree with him on everything. But do I believe, whenever I look at the economy, that we're headed in the right direction with our economy? You bet we are. With the policies as we move forward, dealing with trade, though it's rocky at times, we are making some inroads. Matter of fact, we don't know when this is going to air, but we're hoping that when we return, that the USMCA, mm-hmm. which is not to be confused with USMC, but what we talked about earlier, USMCA, United States, Mexico, and Canada agreement, mm-hmm. is a great agreement. Our farmers like it, our manufacturers like it. I believe that the Mexican economy will be better as well as our economy because it forces the Mexicans to make sure that their labor is being paid at a fair rate with fair benefits. So I believe that we passed that. We're already working right now after the G7 summit with Japan on some unbelievable trade. Now, right now, if you realize and watching the markets, China is trading with our agriculture right now. We have a gap that we missed, but I believe by passing these other two things we've just spoke about, that now China will come back and come back to the table fairly quickly. I don't believe China should ever been accepted in the World Trade Organization, because one of the rules of a World Trade Organization is that you have a free and open economy. They don't have a free and open economy, and they keep proving it over and over again, especially when we see what's happening right now in Hong Kong and the things that are going on. So my back to the original question, I have to look at the whole picture of what the president's doing. I don't have to support him on every issue, but I do support him as the president of this United States.
Do you respect the office, or do you respect the man, or both?
I respect the office more than I respect anyone. I respect the president because even through all of this attack that he has received which no other president has ever received.
But isn't a lot of it brought on by himself, though?
I don't think.
I mean, like his Twitter comments.
Well, okay, okay. So the Twitter. I get more comments from people that, can you make him stop tweeting? You know what? At 3 o'clock in the morning, he doesn't call me and say, hey, Mike, do you think I should tweet this out? That's not okay. But whenever you're one-on-one with him, and I have been, he will listen. I know my people who hate him, they're going to say, no, he doesn't. There's no way. Yes, he does. He listens. If you're presenting a case, and truly presenting the case and explain to him and he understands what you're presenting. And he'll add that into his decision making. He didn't become as successful in business by just automatically throwing people by the wayside. That being said, there's an old statement of different people in politics, and I can think of one that used to be involved in the state of Illinois on the Republican side, that he would listen until he realized he didn't need to because he had zero tolerance for a fool. Because you don't have time. Yeah. You have to make your decisions. So do I have respect for him? I have respect for him in many ways. There are some things I respectfully disagree with, and there are some things that I wish he wouldn't say, or wish he hadn't said in his life. But there's those things I've said I wish I hadn't said in my life.
So how do you prepare when you go in to talk to the president one-on-one? What must you do to prepare your case before you go?
Well, probably the best case was Rod Blagojevich. And I didn't know I was going to be talking to the president. However, if you realize his chief of staff, I actually work with in Congress, Mick Mulvaney. So I'm finding out through the grapevine that he's thinking, and it sounds like it's going to happen pretty quickly, that he's going to basically release Rod Blagojevich. So I end up calling through the grapevine and through my liaison, Mick Mulvaney, and Mick gets hold of me out of a meeting, and he says, I think this is already on its way down. I'm driving home from the northern part of the district when I have this conversation. And I said, Mick, it's not a good idea. I said, this guy is a really bad guy. And without giving all the details of what I said and gave in detail, because Mick said, I will try to talk to the president, and he says, I'll call you back. If I don't call you back by sundown, you call me. Okay. So I've made it to my home by this time. And the phone rings, and honest to goodness, it's a 202 number. Unless I haven't normally have it, but I'm expecting this one, so I pick it up. And I think it's Mick calling from his office. And a young lady says, this is so-and-so with the president's office. Do you have time to talk to the president? I wanted to be smart aleck and go, yeah, no, I'm real busy right now, but probably that wasn't. So you don't really have a lot of time to prepare in a situation like that. Okay. And he came on, he was very upbeat. He talked about the event we had here at Carbondale. And I said, you know, that people respect him, and the people in this district are pretty strong behind him and everything. And I said, but I need to ask you something. I said, you're moving forward with this proposal on Rod Blagojevich. The question is, do they love you more than they hate Rod Blagojevich? And he goes, well, Mike, he served this many times. I said, Mr. President, what he did was bad. And then he brought up his wife, and I said, well, actually, if you've heard the tape, she was well aware of what was going on. And he says, well, they threw that charge out. I said, well, let me tell you what they didn't throw out, Mr. President. I said, they didn't throw out the fact that he shook down an orphanage for them to give to his personal campaign account to receive money from the state of Illinois to help out that orphanage. He shook down a children's hospital, and he didn't, and only the way that they were going to get the money for the children's hospital was if they contributed to his campaign. Mr. President, this is not a good guy. And he and I talked, and I said, by the time it was all said and done, I simply said, and that's just it. Remember, and this is what my thought was, whether I'm dealing with a governor or whether they're your chief executive, the Constitution gives them certain powers. Don't question those powers because they have it. So my last statement was, Mr. President, look, you're going to have to make your own decision here. You have it well within your power. I just felt it was necessary for me to explain exactly to you what I know from a frontline experience. And I said, now you've got to make your decision.
And where does that stand with Blagojevich now? Do you know?
The tweet that came out after that said that he had been asked by some of his inner staff to look at the possibility of staying his time, and he said in the tweet that he will continue to look it over. At which time Mick Mulvaney then sent me a message, did you see the tweet? And I said, yes. Thank you. I think the POTUS was wise in not going down this path. And as of yet, we haven't heard any more about it.
Okay. The speaking of impeachment.
Mm-hmm. We seem to do that a lot.
What do you think about the impeachment inquiry?
Let me explain it to you. No one knows, maybe there's a few that are in Congress that went through the Clinton impeachment procedure. Mm-hmm. But I understand the impeachment procedures that are out and what is involved because I lived it. Mm-hmm. I lived in the state of Illinois. When you take that oath of office, you know that the Constitution has that in there, but you don't think you'll ever be involved with it. I didn't think I'd be involved with it in the state of Illinois. However, the goal and the bar for the state of Illinois is extremely low for impeachment in comparison to impeaching the President of the United States. In our Constitution in the state of Illinois, it says, high crimes, misdemeanors are dereliction of duty. High crimes and misdemeanors is the only thing that we can get that would impeach this president. Now understand this. The problem with this particular impeachment is several-fold, and the suggestion of this impeachment. One is that there have been a group of people aggressively going after impeachment or anything they could impeach on since the day that the election occurred. Since the results of the election came in, and you can go back and check them, there are all these people that are saying, we're going to impeach, we're going to impeach. And each time they switch grounds on what they're going to be impeach on. First it's going to be this, then it's going to be the Mueller report, then it's going to be this, and it doesn't come out, and it doesn't come out, it doesn't come out. Even to the fact that we have some chairmen of committees that have been caught in making things up and making statements, whether it's the Mueller report or whether it's on what we're looking into right now, they have this information, and then the information comes out and falls flat. So much so that we're getting new information every 2 days. And some of it is, well, maybe we should check that out, or others is not. That being said, the impeachment inquiry on where we're at right now is not the procedure that we have done through the United States history. And let me explain that. Whether it was Jackson, Nixon, Clinton, a full vote of the House was taken, rise or fall based on the vote, for the impeachment hearings and investigation to start. This one, the Speaker of the House just simply said, we're going to start it. Now the problem I have, and many people say it's unconstitutional, let me clarify where I believe it is unconstitutional, but the Constitution, you've got to understand what it says and why I feel it's unconstitutional. One, the Constitution gives in Article 1, Section 3, the power of the trial of impeachment to the Senate. I think that's right, Section 3, yeah. Article 2, Section 4 gives the power to the House, and only the House, the ability to conduct the impeachment. All right? It gives to the House, and only the House, the ability to conduct the impeachment. And if you read it, that's what it says. The Speaker is not the House. The House is 437 members duly elected from each of the districts that represent each of those districts in each state. And that is called for a vote to make that decision to move forward. The Speaker and a group of cronies cannot and should not be able to move forward. Now, they can argue that if they want, but it is clear in the Constitution of what it says.
So you believe that it's against the Constitution to proceed with the impeachment inquiry without a vote first?
Without a vote first. I do. I believe that. Now, let me explain this. You can also believe it on the fact that it has been a past practice. It's not in the rules of the House. Mm-hmm. The language in the Constitution can be interpreted very broadly or very narrowly, okay? But apparently, our forefathers that have done this before felt it was a narrow, that it should be the House as a whole. And it might be that members won't vote for it. As of right now, I've not seen the evidence that would justify for me to move forward. That might change. Every day there is more stuff coming in, and every day more things are being thrown out, and every day something else comes up to even incriminate someone else that might have been there well before this president. So it's a very, very slippery slope we're going down.
But if you have to, you're saying this evidence is coming out every day. Much of this evidence has been coming out since the inquiry has begun.
Yeah.
Now,
well, let me clarify that.
Is the inquiry the catalyst for this information coming forth, or could you get your hands on this information without the inquiry?
I think some of that will come out before long. On that, could have been gotten without the inquiry. But that being said, the inquiry also is the first time ever that it's done in secret. Look at all the other ones. They weren't done in secret. They were done with the press setting right there so you could hear both sides. And it's the first time ever that the accused does not have the ability to have a lawyer present. The accused does not have the ability to question the witness. Not only that, only one side of the aisle has the ability to subpoena. When we did the Clinton, and you know what, that one there, you can look at it. Was it chasing because of a moral issue, or was it because the argument that would say from the Republican side is because he lied before a committee or lied under oath? Whatever. Both sides of the aisle had the vote, and both sides of the aisle had the ability to call witnesses, subpoena witnesses, and truly do a true open to the public investigation. This whistleblower, we're hearing bits and pieces and rumors about the whistleblower, and now most recently the whistleblower wants to come and give a written testimony only to Congress. Really? How can I ask the whistleblower certain questions if all they're going to do is give a written? And would you want to be tried like this? I don't want to be tried like this. Our Constitution and this great nation says that people should not be tried like this. This is done in countries that have no Constitution, where basically we've already made you that you're guilty, so now we're just going to find the way to have it happen.
You read the transcript of the president's conversation. Do you see any quid pro quo?
I do not. I do not see any quid pro quo. I maybe wouldn't have said it the way he said it, okay? I probably wouldn't have said anything about Biden Okay, but the two, and truly legal scholars who are not got a bias are the ones that have been going, yeah, there's nothing.
Well, now, and back to the Blagojevich thing that we're familiar with in Illinois. He said, I have this thing and it's golden, to paraphrase him, talking about the Senate seat that he had, and he implied that you do things for me, I will do things for you. How does that differ from President Trump saying, you know, yeah, we're going to send you this aid, but I have a favor I want to ask you. I want you to check into.
Yeah, but wait a minute. He didn't go to. That's where the question is. Right after he said, I have a favor to ask you, he asked other things before he ever mentioned anything like that. The tape that we had on Rod Blagojevich, there was no question. Matter of fact, Rod Blagojevich's wife was screaming in the background exactly what it is they were looking for. There was a whole lot more to that conversation. And what's really wild is that in the case of Rod Blagojevich, that was just one of many instances. And he had people around him wired at all times. I got a feeling that with this president, I think there's nobody been investigated more than this guy. I mean, like him, hate him, but he has been investigated to the hilt by people who said, we're going to find a way. Al Green, I don't care. We're going to find a way to impeach him. I know that's what Al Green has said since the election day. I sat in the chair when he said it on the House floor. And you have to always give warnings from the House floor if you're in the chair. Parliamentarian says, you can't, I don't care if you agree with him or disagree with him, this is what you're going to say. Because I had to do it when people would say things about Barack Obama, and I had to say it from that chair whenever they said it about this president. Members are advised they cannot make comments about the personalities of the president. And they can be, I mean, and then I have to quote the rule, okay? But Al Green and many others, since his election, have started in, and every day, like a constant beat. And there are the people that are out there that are tied with the former administrations that just hate the guy. What an environment to try to work around. But let me put it to you this way. We've got the best economy going. Jobs are booming. Businesses that were overseas are coming back to this nation. Unemployment is at an all-time low. Pride in what we're dealing with around the world among a majority of citizens is really at an all-time high. If we would quit this ridiculous chasing around and focus, because when asked, the speaker or the leadership on the Democrat side of the aisle, they say, well, we can chew gum and walk at the same time. But we're not. When I say we're not, look what we're not getting done. We've got USMCA still laying on the table. We've got a capital bill that everybody wants to be involved with, but no, we're not doing anything to move it forward. Why? Because we're playing and chasing all of these rabbits. And each time we go down, it's just like going down a rabbit hole. We all of a sudden can't find anything there, and we switch to a different. You know what? We're less than 14 months from the next election, 13 months from the next election. Let us go to the election, and let the people decide. But if you listen to what Al Green said on the floor, if we don't go down this direction of impeachment, he might be elected again. Now that's his quote on the House floor. Really? So
if he is impeached by the House,
yeah,
goes to the Senate, the Senate chooses whether to convict or not.
Right.
Republicans control the Senate.
Right.
So it appears that even if the House impeaches and the Senate then hears it and they're going to say no. Well, so what is the purpose for pursuing all of this?
I don't know. I don't know. And let me say exactly what Mitch McConnell said, because sometimes, and let me tell you that senators think different than House members. It's not just an age difference like it is in the Illinois House and Senate. They have a different rule set. They have a different mindset. However, someone, and I heard it in one of the commentaries that know Mitch McConnell well. What Mitch McConnell said is, they said, would you take up, if the House votes on an impeachment, would you take it up? His statement was, we have no choice but to take it up. No ifs, no ands, no buts.
They are required by law.
They were required by law to take it up. He said, how long we take it up is what's in question. There is a procedure that would be available to table it. And if they had the votes to table it, they could do that. If they had the votes to hear it and then vote it down, they could do that. But I don't see, because remember, it takes 2/3 of the Senate. It isn't just, oh, it takes a simple majority. It takes 2/3. We didn't get it done with Bill Clinton, but what a waste of time, right? Now, does that mean we don't do our due diligence if there's true evidence out there? You know what? I want to see the evidence. But let's do it the right way.
Okay. Do you think President Trump will be reelected?
I think that if the Democrats keep going down the path they are now, and out of all of these things that they're throwing against the wall to see if they stick, nothing sticks, yes, it's highly possible. But it's a long time, and the next 14 months is a long time.
Will you be reelected?
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, a lot of people ask me why. I hope so.
What do you have left undone that you want to see accomplished?
I think we're headed in the right direction as far as the economy. And as I said a while ago, that if we would stop with this type of stuff, if we could put it together, an infrastructure bill that would meet what our forefathers put in place when they built the interstate highway system, do you believe, you realize what that means to our grandchildren? And what it means to make sure that we are that great economic engine that shows and leads the world. That's what I want to see, is to be able to continue to do that. That being said, someday, maybe, look, I got to get through the election. I think it's wild as people say, how you feel about term limits? Every 2 years I got to run. The voters can term limit me, I guarantee it. And believe me, after reading some of the Facebook posts, some of them want to. So, but that being said, right now, I'm older, but I'm not old. I've got a lot of experience and a lot of friends and colleagues on both sides of the aisle that gives me a golden opportunity to help not only the nation and my children and grandchildren for the future, and yours as well, but to help Southern Illinois when unique issues come up, and understanding the ins and outs. I'm through my first term, which is the drinking of the fire of hose term. Now I know how to actually turn the hose spigot off and direct it to the staff and go get the other things that I want to get done. So there are still a lot of things to be done, and infrastructure would probably be one of the greatest things.
You were talking about unique problems unique to Southern Illinois in your district. One of those is when barges come floating through a levee that the federal government has refused to repair during flooding. And so you've been to Alexander County. You've seen the Lynn Small levee. You know the issues there, and folks there have been waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers or the federal government to step in and do something there. What are the chances of them getting that repaired?
Because of navigational purposes and what we're bringing forward to them. Now understand that in existing law, which is what we've tried to change, and then things happen in the Senate and you try to get that straightened out. All you can do is calculate economic impact on the area where the levee is. However, we're trying to put it in place where navigation is part of that.
That's part of the Levee Rehabilitation Improvement Act?
That's correct. That's correct. You've got that correct. And what we're saying with this is, not only do we know it's a navigational problem because one, we got a barge parked in the center of a field, but two, we had during the time that the river was up, which was all of the summer and early spring, the Coast Guard posted, matter of fact, I talked about this on the House floor, a warning to maritime captains: avoid the area because of navigational purposes. The current along the Lynn Small Levee, you must avoid by a mile passing around so you don't get sucked into the breach. That in itself is evidence. Now the problem is like anything we deal with when we deal with the bureaucracy. The Army Corps of Engineers, let me tell you, there's some great people there like there is any place else. But you also have engineers that sit in Washington in an office, and based on whatever information, they're going to calculate, but they don't go out and see a barge sitting in the middle of the field. I try to explain to them that there's two big problems. One is the navigational issue that occurs there. However, if you calculate how it is that it is cutting through across what is known as Dogtooth Bend, if it cuts through, because of the elevation change over that 17 miles, it now becomes 3¼ miles across. It is now eroding not only from the side of the high pressure side, but the low pressure side is eroding. I've been there. If that breaks through, not only will you not be able to move barges up and down the Mississippi River at high water, at low water you won't, because that becomes a rapids. And the only option is, I guess it would be a great project for years to come, except for the fact we can't move our products from Chicago and the northern part of the nation down to New Orleans, and that's building a lock and dam there. I sure hope it doesn't take as long as Olmsted did.
Right.
But
and the cost would be far different.
Yeah. Where if we fix the levee, and that is my argument, let me tell you, we do have. And let me tell you this is where an administration has also done something very, very good on this. This administration, as far as Southern Illinois and putting people in charge of certain areas, whether it is in charge of the crop insurance program, who is a person right here from Southern Illinois that's in charge of that, or whether it's R.D. James, who, of all places, who is the highest ranking civilian person with the Army Corps of Engineers under this president, is from New Madrid, Missouri. You know what R.D. James says? Because he and I have met, it's a navigational problem, because he knows the river, and it's the right guy to have there to help us.
Now, FEMA denied disaster assistance to individuals and businesses in Illinois because of the flooding. IEMA is currently appealing that decision.
Right. I'm working with them to do that.
Any hope that the appeal will succeed?
I think so. We're trying to show the areas, because you got to reach certain thresholds. We think we reached the thresholds, but then there was a reporting date. We've missed a reporting date. If we get some kind of extension, the best of the best is working to try to get this. It's very difficult. Now understand that it is a benefit to all the taxpayers in those areas that were declared, because right now, local governments will be reimbursed and stuff like that. But the problem is homeowners and property owners and business owners also need to be reimbursed. They benefit because the taxes that the local communities will save, but we believe that they do that they are and did meet the thresholds. So we'll be arguing with and trying to get that changed.
Some Southern Illinois schools recently received funding to increase security measures through your Securing Our Schools Act. How does that help local schools, and will more local schools be seeing that funding?
Matter of fact, they just announced that there's more coming now. I don't know which ones of our schools are in. They just came out with it yesterday. But yes, and here's what's unique about this school safety grants. The school safety grants are written in conjunction with your local law enforcement, because they're actually issued through the Department of Justice. So it requires them from that to do that. For instance, many of my schools say, hey, we wanted safety locks on the inner doors. Hey, our school needs safety glass because our schools were built at this time and a bullet would penetrate the glass and then we wouldn't be safe in the classrooms. Then we had one school district that said, we would just like to actually be able to have a cell tower put nearby so that our teachers can actually call for emergency services. These are the type grants, and they can be unique to the district. That's a real advantage because so many times out of Washington, what you get is you get a guideline that might be great for New Jersey school, but Lick Creek, Illinois, yeah, doesn't work.
Right. Now, we're hearing that because of people exiting the state, census numbers probably will be down. And there's that threat that we could lose representation.
One, maybe two. Understand we've done that over the last several years. Even at the times when we weren't losing population, we weren't growing as fast as others. I think we were at, when we were high school age, we had 23 U.S. congressmen, and now we're down to 19. Maybe we had 24. I'm trying to remember how it was. We could be as low as 17. And definitely, we're going to be 18. We're going to lose enough that we're going to, and then it's up to Mike Madigan to draw the map on how that all pans out.
Could we see a legislative district in Southern Illinois? Could we lose representation in Southern Illinois?
Yes. No doubt we probably will. The question is, will the district that I represent all of a sudden have a lot more counties in it and then be drawn different? Like, let's say one, similar to the Kenny Gray, Glenn Bouchard, that district, which is more go across 64 or thereabouts and go south, okay? The southern, so many counties. And then the central, so many counties. Instead of the map that we've seen drawn now that splits southern Illinois, what we know as southern Illinois. And is that going to change? Probably because, you know, Speaker Madigan will try to draw a map that will give as many easily won or in play Democrat seats as he can. And if you look at the dynamics that have changed throughout southern Illinois, you can't draw a Democrat seat anywhere in southern Illinois. So then does he just take and try to draw it a straight line across and then another straight line across until he gets up to the burbs and then make the starburst like he did with the state reps districts, the starburst out of the city so that he can use the city Democrat numbers to modify the collar counties and then on out into the downstate. He's very good at what he does. Mm-hmm. He'll draw a map that is most beneficial for him and the Democrats. But downstate, probably it'll be a divide, but I don't know. We'll see. He has a unique way of drawing.
Well, Mike, thank you for sitting down and
Mark,
talking with us today. I know you have other things to get to.
But enjoyed it.
Appreciate you taking your time to talk over pizza today.
Thank you.
Thank you.